The Tupperware container was empty. That's what Martin Chu noticed first, not the elegant Chanel suit his mother wore, incongruous against the neighbor's modest doorstep, not the confused expression on Sandra Johnson's face, but the spotless plastic container his mother clutched like a beggar's bowl. Margaret Chu, who once hosted governors in their formal dining room, stood on a suburban porch, asking if anyone had extra dinner to share. 6 months. Martin had been gone just 6 months, building the Singapore branch of Chu Properties, while his father's empty chair gathered dust in the study. He'd thought distance would dull the grief. Instead, he'd returned to find his mother disappearing in ways he couldn't have imagined. The diagnosis came swift and clinical, early-onset Alzheimer's. But the truth was more complex than any doctor's explanation. His mother wasn't just forgetting, she was unraveling. The imperious woman who'd built an empire of control and careful distance was asking strangers for food she didn't need. She was seeking something, Martin realized, though he couldn't yet name what. Then came Elena, not with credentials or protocols, but with a question that changed everything. What if she's not confused? What if she's finally hungry for what she's denied herself all these years? When Elena joined his mother on the neighbor's porch, instead of redirecting her home, Martin watched from the window, disturbed and captivated. His mother was smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time since his father's death. Stay with us to witness how a son learned that the greatest inheritance isn't wealth or status. It's the courage to need each other, to be vulnerable enough to ask for help, even when your refrigerator is full. This is the story of how hunger for connection can finally, impossibly be satisfied. The Singapore airport smelled like recycled air and expensive cologne. Martin Chu sat in the first-class lounge watching his laptop screen blur as exhaustion pulled at his eyes. 6 months. He'd been gone 6 months, building the Asian branch of Chu Properties, while his father's empty chair collected dust back home. The flight attendant's voice cut through his fog. "We'll be landing in Seattle in approximately 12 hours. 12 hours to prepare for a house that felt like a museum. 12 hours to rehearse excuses for why he'd stayed away so long." The sky outside his window shifted from Singapore's humid haze to the gray wash of a Pacific Northwest October. Martin didn't sleep. Instead, he answered emails, reviewed contracts, built spreadsheets, anything to keep his mind occupied with problems that had solutions. When the wheels touched down at SeaTac, Martin felt his chest tighten. He collected his carry-on with mechanical precision, nodded at the driver waiting with his name on a placard, and settled into the back seat for the drive north. The gated community looked exactly as he'd left it. Manicured lawns, designer. Mailboxes. Houses spaced far enough apart that you could pretend your neighbors didn't exist. His mother had always preferred it that way. The Chu mansion rose before him, all glass and stone and careful landscaping. His mother's silver Mercedes sat in the circular driveway, immaculate as always. Martin paid the driver, grabbed his luggage, and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. "Mom?" His voice echoed through the marble foyer. Silence. Then, from somewhere in the back of the house, Rosa's urgent footsteps. "Mr. Martin?" The housekeeper appeared, wringing her hands. Her eyes were red. "I tried calling you so many times." "I was on a plane. What's wrong? Where's my mother?" Rosa's face crumpled. "She went to the neighbors. Again. I couldn't stop her. She has the container." "What container? Rosa, what are you talking about?" "The Tupperware. She's asking Mrs. Johnson for food." Martin felt something cold settle in his stomach. "We have food. You cook every day." "I know." Rosa's voice broke. "I know." He found his mother 3 houses down, standing on Sandra Johnson's front porch. Margaret Chu wore a Chanel suit, cream-colored, perfectly pressed, and held an empty plastic container in both hands like an offering bowl. Sandra stood in the doorway, her face a mixture of pity and profound discomfort. "Margaret, I really think you should go home. Martin is probably looking for you." "Do you have any extra dinner?" His mother's voice was polite, formal, the voice she'd used when chairing charity galas. "I don't want to impose, but if you have anything you're not using..." "Mom?" Margaret turned. Her eyes passed over him with vague recognition, the way you might notice a familiar stranger on the street. "Mom, it's me, Martin. I'm home." "Oh." She looked down at the Tupperware in her hands, confused about how it had gotten there. "Did I?" Sandra Johnson backed into her house. I'll let you two." The door closed with a soft click that sounded like judgment. Martin reached for his mother's elbow, and she let him take it. Her skin felt papery, fragile in a way he didn't remember. They walked back toward the house in silence, Margaret clutching her empty container, Martin's mind racing through explanations that made no sense. The woman who once hosted governors and tech moguls had just begged for food from a neighbor. His mother was disappearing, and he hadn't been there to see it start. Rosa made tea that no one drank. It sat cooling on the Kitchu Island while Martin paced, and his mother stared out the window at her garden, humming something he didn't recognize. "How long?" His voice came out harder than he intended. "How long has this been happening?" Rosa's hands trembled as she pulled a manila folder from a drawer. 4 months, maybe longer. I wasn't sure at first. Small things. Forgetting where she put her keys, asking me the same question twice. But then, she opened the folder. Inside were notes, dated and detailed. Margaret's handwriting on checks made out to obvious scammers, grocery lists with the same 3 items written over and over. A photo Rosa had taken on her phone, Margaret standing in the driveway at dawn in her nightgown, confused about why she was outside. She gave $5,000 cash to a door-to-door salesman, Rosa whispered. He said he was raising money for veterans. She wrote the check right there, didn't even ask for a receipt. Martin felt his throat close. "Why didn't you call me?" "I did call you, Mr. Martin." Rosa's voice carried an edge he'd never heard before. 17 times. You said you were busy. You said you trusted me to handle things. The accusation hung in the air between them. Martin had no defense. He'd seen Rosa's name on his missed calls, heard her voicemails, and told himself everything was fine. Whatever it was could wait. He had buildings to acquire, deals to close, an empire to build. His mother had been unraveling, and he'd been in another country, congratulating himself on his success. "I'm calling Dr. Patel." Martin pulled out his phone. "Right now." "He's been trying to reach you too." Of course he had. Dr. Rajesh Patel's office smelled like antiseptic and bad news. Martin sat in an uncomfortable chair while his mother underwent cognitive tests in another room. The walls were covered with degrees, certifications, family photos, evidence of a life fully lived. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, his kind face carried the weight of diagnosis. "I'm sorry, Martin. The scans confirm what I suspected. Your mother has early onset Alzheimer's disease." The words landed like stones. Martin heard himself asking clinical questions. Progression rate, treatment options, life expectancy, his business mind taking over because his heart couldn't handle the truth. "The disease will strip away the structures she's built," Dr. Patel explained, pulling up brain scans on his computer. "But here's something important. It may also reveal who she was before those structures existed. Many patients access deep memories, old languages, suppressed emotions." She was humming something this morning. I didn't recognize it. Her mother's songs, perhaps. The childhood memories often surface last, remain longest. When they brought Margaret back to the consultation room, she looked smaller somehow. She sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, drifting between awareness and absence. "Martin." Her voice was suddenly clear, present. "When did you get home?" "This morning, Mom." "Oh," she frowned. Did something happen? Everyone seems upset." Dr. Patel leaned forward gently. "Margaret, do you remember what we talked about the tests?" "Tests?" She looked at Martin, fear flickering across her face. "Am I sick?" "You have Alzheimer's disease, Mom." The words felt cruel in his mouth. But Dr. Patel had been firm. She deserves to know, while she can still understand. Margaret's face did something Martin had never seen before. It cracked. The perfect composure she'd maintained his entire life shattered. No, that's not... I can't... We'll figure this out," Martin heard himself say. "I'm here now. I'm not leaving." But even as he spoke, he knew he was lying. He didn't know how to be here, didn't know how to watch his formidable mother dissolve into confusion, didn't know how to love someone who was disappearing. Dr. Patel's prescription was clinical, full-time specialized memory care, structured environment, professional oversight. "Keep her safe," he said. "Keep her comfortable. That's all we can do now." That night, Martin lay in his childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Down the hall, his mother slept, or didn't sleep. He had no idea. Tomorrow, he would start interviewing caregivers. Tomorrow, he would build a plan, create structure, impose control. Tomorrow, he would try to save his mother by managing her decline. It never occurred to him that management might be the last thing she needed. Elena's first week established rhythms that made no sense to Martin but seemed to calm something fundamental in his mother. Every afternoon at 3 o'clock, they visited a different neighbor, not just the Johnsons, the Patels, the Williamses, even the elderly Mr. Kowalski who rarely answered his door. Elena brought flowers from Margaret's garden, stayed to listen, asked questions that opened doors Martin didn't know existed. "Your mother's mother," Elena said one evening, reviewing notes in her worn journal. "Ran a grocery store?" "I don't know anything about that." Martin looked up from his laptop where he'd been pretending to work while actually watching Elena catalog his mother's fragments. "In Beacon Hill, a small Filipino market. Margaret remembers the smell of dried fish, the sound of Tagalog spoken fast and angry when customers complained about prices." Elena's eyes were gentle. She changed her name, Margarita, to Margaret. She was ashamed. The words landed like an accusation. Martin had never heard his mother speak Tagalog, hadn't known she'd been born Margarita. His own grandmother was a ghost he'd never met, dismissed in family history as someone who died when Margaret was building her career. "Can we go there?" Elena asked. "To Beacon Hill?" "Why?" "Because your mother keeps asking for it, not in words, but she's hungry for something that neighborhood represents." They went the next morning. Martin drove, Elena navigated, Margaret sat in the back seat humming. The neighborhood was gentrified now, the small groceries replaced by poke restaurants and craft coffee shops, but the bones remained. Elena found it somehow, the building that had housed Crew's Grocery. Now it was a ramen place with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Margaret stood on the sidewalk, staring. Then she started crying, not the confused tears Martin had seen, but something deeper, grief mixed with recognition. She spoke in Tagalog, fluid, musical, angry, and sad. Elena answered in the same language, halting, but sincere. Martin stood helpless, locked out of a conversation between his mother and a woman she'd known for a week. When Margaret finally exhausted herself, Elena guided her to a bench. They sat in silence for 20 minutes. Martin watched from the car, his phone forgotten. That evening, Elena cooked. Not Rose's careful American meals, but something that made the kitchen smell like Martin imagined his grandmother's store had smelled. Pork adobo, soy and vinegar and garlic. Margaret appeared in the doorway, drawn by scent. "Mama?" "No," Elena said gently, "but I learned from someone who learned from someone like your mama. Come, help me." Martin watched his mother's hands remember, cutting vegetables with knife skills he didn't know she possessed, adjusting seasoning without measuring, moving through the kitchen like someone remembering a dance. They ate at the kitchen table, not the formal dining room where his mother had hosted governors. Rosa joined them. Margaret spoke half in English, half in Tagalog, and nobody corrected her. Later, after Margaret went to bed still humming, Martin found Elena in the garden. "You're breaking her apart," he said. "No." Elena looked up at the darkening sky. "She's already broken. I'm just helping her find the pieces that matter." She was someone. She built something. She built a fortress. Elena's voice was kind but firm. A beautiful, expensive fortress that kept her safe from ever being seen. "The disease is tearing down the walls. You can try to rebuild them, or you can meet who's inside." Martin wanted to argue, wanted to insist that his mother's carefully constructed life had meaning. But he'd watched her hands remember recipes she claimed never to have learned, heard her speak a language she'd supposedly forgotten. His mother was breaking apart, and underneath the breakage, someone else was emerging, someone who'd been buried for 50 years. By Elena's third week, patterns had become rituals. Morning coffee in the percolator Elena found in the basement, tarnished silver that Rosa said had belonged to Margaret's mother. Elena polished it until it gleamed. Every morning, Margaret helped measure grounds, watched the brew percolate with something like peace on her face. Afternoons, the neighborhood visits. Elena had given them structure without rigidity. Monday the Johnsons, Tuesday the Patels, Wednesday Mr. Kowalski, who'd started leaving his door unlocked in anticipation. Evenings, music. Elena discovered that Margaret's mother had sung in a Filipino church choir. She found recordings online, old hymns in Tagalog, women's voices rising in harmony. Margaret listened with her eyes closed, sometimes singing along with words she couldn't have remembered but somehow did. Martin found himself drawn into the rituals despite his resistance. One evening, watching from his office window as Elena and Margaret walked the garden paths at dusk, he made a decision he didn't fully understand. He joined them. The October air was sharp with wood smoke and dying leaves. Margaret walked slowly, one hand trailing along the rose bushes she'd planted 20 years ago. She turned when Martin fell into step beside them, looked at him with confusion. "It's Martin," Elena said quietly. "He wanted to walk with us." "Do I know you?" Margaret asked him directly. The question hurt more than Martin expected. "I'm your son." "Oh." Margaret considered this. "Are you lonely?" The question, so unexpected, so direct, stripped something away. "Yes," Martin heard himself say. "I think I am." "Me too." Margaret took his hand. Hers felt small, papery, but her grip was sure. "It's better when we walk together, isn't it?" They circled the garden in silence. Elena didn't fill the quiet with chatter. She let the moment breathe. "He's someone who loves you," Elena said eventually, when Margaret looked at Martin again with that confused recognition. "You don't have to remember his name. Just know he's safe." Margaret nodded, accepting this. She didn't let go of Martin's hand. Walking in the twilight, holding his mother's hand while she hummed songs from a childhood she'd tried to erase, Martin felt something crack open in his chest. Not grief exactly, something more complicated. "Tell me about your mother," Elena said to him. Not demanding, just offering space. "I don't know anything about her. She was this perfect, controlled person who hosted parties and chaired boards and never showed weakness." The words came easier in the dark. "I spent my whole life trying to be like her, successful, controlled, never needing anything from anyone." "And your father?" "He died 18 months ago. Heart attack in his office. I was in Singapore closing a deal. By the time I got home, he was already gone." Martin's voice roughened. "I stayed there another 6 months rather than come back to the empty house." Margaret squeezed his hand. "It's hard when they leave," she said. "My Richard left. He said he'd come back, but he's late." "I know, Mom." They walked until full dark. Rosa turned on the garden lights, small solar fixtures along the paths that his mother had installed years ago and probably didn't remember. Inside, Elena made tea. They sat in the kitchen, the three of them and Rosa, and nobody spoke much. It wasn't awkward. It was just quiet. Later, after Margaret went to bed, Elena showed Martin her journal. "I'm not trying to maintain her memory," she explained. "I'm trying to create new ones, simple, repeated moments that feel safe. She won't remember the details tomorrow, but the feelings stay. The ritual becomes anchor." Martin looked at Elena's careful notes, times, responses, moments of clarity, moments of peace. "You're teaching me," he realized. "Yes," Elena smiled. "Because eventually I'll leave, but you'll stay. And she needs someone who understands that love isn't about fixing, it's about presence." Outside, October stars wheeled overhead. Inside, his mother slept. And Martin sat with a stranger who was teaching him how to love someone who was disappearing. He began joining the evening walks every night. The invitation arrived on cream cardstock, hand-delivered by Dr. Patel's teenage daughter. Diwali celebration, Saturday, November 4th. All neighbors welcome. Elena held it up to the light streaming through the kitchen window. "We should go." Martin looked up from his laptop. 4 weeks since he'd returned from Singapore. 4 weeks of watching his mother unravel and somehow, impossibly, bloom. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because," he gestured vaguely, "people will stare. They'll whisper. You've seen how some of the neighbors look at her." "I have." Elena set the invitation on the counter between them. "And your mother doesn't care what they think anymore. The question is whether you do." Margaret appeared in the doorway, wearing one of her old Chanel suits. She'd dressed herself this morning, buttons misaligned, but Elena hadn't corrected her. "Are we going somewhere?" "A party," Elena said. "At Dr. Patel's house. Would you like that?" "I don't remember the last time I went to a party." Margaret's voice carried wonder, as if parties were exotic creatures she'd only read about. The irony wasn't lost on Martin. His mother had hosted dozens of fundraisers, gallery openings, political dinners, but those weren't parties. They were performances. "Then we should go," Elena said, looking at Martin. "Shouldn't we?" Saturday evening arrived cold and clear. Elena helped Margaret into a traditional Filipino terno dress, cream silk with butterfly sleeves that she'd found in storage. "Your mother wore this to your father's first mayoral campaign event," Rosa had explained, before she decided it was too ethnic. Now, Margaret stood in front of the mirror, running her hands over the embroidered fabric. "Mama made dresses like this," she said in Tagalog. Then, switching to English, "Do I look silly?" "You look beautiful," Martin said, and meant it. The Patel house blazed with light and color. Oil lamps lined the walkway, and through the windows, Martin could see neighbors crowded into the living room. His stomach clenched. Dr. Patel opened the door, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "Margaret, I'm so glad you came." Inside, the house smelled of cardamom and saffron. Priya Patel pressed warm gulab jamun into their hands. Neighbors clustered in small groups, the Johnsons, the Williamses, Mr. Kowalski in a suit that looked older than Martin. Margaret moved through the room like a child at a museum, touching fabrics, asking questions that would have mortified her old self. "Are you lonely?" she asked Mrs. Williams, who stood by the dessert table looking uncomfortable in her formal dress. Mrs. Williams blinked. What? "You look sad. I get sad too. Do you miss someone?" The room had gone quiet. Martin felt his face burn. This was exactly what he'd feared. His mother making a spectacle, saying inappropriate things, crossing boundaries that couldn't be uncrossed. But Mrs. Williams's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter, she lives in Boston. We haven't spoken in 2 years. I said something stupid about her partner and we just stopped talking." Margaret took her hand. "That's hard. Being alone is hard." "Yes," Mrs. Williams's voice broke. "Yes, it really is." And just like that, something shifted. Sandra Johnson moved closer, sharing her own story of estrangement from her son. Mr. Kowalski admitted his children thought he should sell his house, move into assisted living, stop being difficult. Martin watched his mother create space for honesty simply by refusing to pretend. She asked the questions no one was supposed to ask. "Are you lonely? Do you miss your mother? What made you laugh today?" Some neighbors retreated to the kitchen, uncomfortable with the rawness. Martin overheard 2 women by the window, Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Chu, no relation. "It's undignified," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "That caregiver should control her better." "Someone should report this," Mrs. Chu agreed. "That woman is clearly taking advantage." Martin felt Elena tense beside him, but before he could respond, he heard his own voice. "My mother isn't being taken advantage of. She's finally free to be honest." Mrs. Patterson turned, face flushed. "Martin, surely you can see. I see someone who spent 50 years performing in vulnerability, and I see what that cost her." His voice rose. "Maybe this version seems undignified to you, but maybe your definition of dignity is just another word for emotional isolation." The room had gone quiet again. Mrs. Patterson's mouth opened and closed. Margaret appeared at his elbow, holding a plate of samosas. "Would you like some food?" she asked the women kindly. "There's plenty." Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Chu retreated without answering. Driving home, Margaret fell asleep in the back seat, her head against the window. Elena reached across the console and squeezed Martin's hand. "You defended her," she said quietly. "I defended the truth." Martin glanced in the rearview mirror at his mother's peaceful face. Maybe this is who she always was underneath. "And maybe," Elena said, "you're learning to love who she's becoming instead of who she was." Outside, November stars wheeled overhead. Inside the car, something precious and fragile took root. The beginning of Martin's transformation from observer to participant, from manager to advocate. His mother was breaking apart, and he was finally learning to love the pieces. Martin woke to rain hammering the windows and his mother's voice drifting up from the kitchen, clear, controlled, unmistakably lucid. He took the stairs 2 at a time, heart racing. Dr. Patel had warned this might happen, occasional windows of complete clarity that could last hours or minutes, offering glimpses of the person buried beneath confusion. Margaret sat at the kitchen table, still, in her nightgown, reading the newspaper. She looked up when Martin entered, and her eyes held full recognition. "You let your hair get too long." The ordinary criticism felt like a miracle. "Mom, you're lucid?" "Yes." Her voice carried the old precision. "It happens sometimes, apparently. The fog lifts and I can see exactly what I've become." She folded the newspaper with movements sharp as broken glass. "Where's that woman? The caregiver?" "Elena, she doesn't come until 8. "Good." Margaret's jaw tightened. "Because we need to talk about what she's been doing." Martin felt cold spread through his chest. "What do you mean?" "Rosa told me everything. The neighborhood visits, the begging." Margaret's voice shook with humiliation. "I've been going door to door asking for food like some kind of charity case, and that Elena person has been encouraging it." "It's not like that, isn't it?" Margaret stood, began pacing. "Do you know what people must be saying? Margaret Chu, begging for scraps. Margaret Chu, the spectacle. I built a reputation in this city. I chaired boards, hosted governors, and now I'm the neighborhood curiosity." "You're not. Don't patronize me, Martin. Right now, I know exactly who I am, or who I was." She stopped at the window, staring out at the rain-soaked garden. "I remember standing on Sandra Johnson's porch. I remember holding that goddamn Tupperware container. I just didn't understand why I was doing it." Martin moved closer carefully, as if approaching something wild. "Do you understand now?" "No." The word came out broken. "I don't understand anything. I don't understand why my mind is betraying me. I don't understand why I can't remember my own son's name most days. I don't understand why I suddenly speak Tagalog after 50 years of pretending I never learned it." Her voice rose. "I don't understand who I'm becoming, and it terrifies me. Mom, fire her." Margaret turned, and Martin saw tears tracking down her face, the first real tears he'd seen since his father died. "Fire Elena. Call that memory care facility your sister researched. Do something to stop this dissolution." "I can't do that." "You're my son. You're supposed to protect me." "I am protecting you," Martin's voice caught. "Just not from what you think." "Then from what?" He wanted to say from isolation, from the fortress you built, from dying without ever being truly known. But before he could find words, Margaret swayed. Her eyes went distant. The lucidity was fracturing. "Mom?" Martin caught her elbow. "Are you okay?" Where's Richard?" Fear crept into her voice. "He said he'd be home for dinner." "Dad's not here, but he promised." Margaret pulled away, confusion replacing clarity. "He always comes home." The fog was descending again, erasing the brutal self-awareness. Martin watched his mother slip away mid-conversation, watched her armor crack and something more vulnerable emerge. "I'm scared," Margaret Ikat whispered. "Martin, I'm scared." He called Elena. She arrived within 20 minutes, hair still wet from the shower, moving through the house with practiced calm. She found Margaret in the garden despite the rain, standing among the roses with water streaming down her face, lost in the space between remembering and forgetting. Elena didn't try to redirect her inside. She simply walked out into the rain and stood beside her. "I don't know who I am," Margaret said. "I know. I was someone important. I built things. I mattered. You still matter." Elena took Margaret's hand. "Just differently now. I don't want to disappear. You won't. You're just changing form." They stood in the rain for 10 minutes. Martin watched from the kitchen window as his mother's terror slowly subsided, replaced by something like acceptance. When Elena finally guided Margaret inside, wrapped her in towels, made sweet tea with honey, Margaret had forgotten the morning's clarity, had forgotten her fear, had forgotten asking Martin to fire Elena. But Martin remembered. That evening, after Margaret went to bed humming songs she couldn't name, Elena found Martin in his father's study. "She asked you to fire me," Elena said. Not a question. "Yes. And you didn't." "No." Martin looked up from the desk where his father once sat. Because she was terrified. Because the person asking me to maintain her old self was actually the disease trying to rebuild the walls. Because... He stopped, throat tight. Because you're learning, Elena finished gently. Learning what? That love isn't keeping someone frozen in the shape you remember. It's being present while they transform. She sat down across from him. Your mother is losing the fortress she built, and underneath is someone who always needed connection but never learned to ask for it directly. The Alzheimer's isn't destroying her authentic self, it's revealing it. By making her beg for food she doesn't need. By teaching her that asking for what you need isn't weakness. Elena's eyes were steady. Your mother built walls so high she couldn't see over them. Now those walls are crumbling. You can either mourn the fortress or meet the person inside. Martin thought about his mother standing in the rain, terrified of dissolution. Thought about her asking neighbors if they were lonely. Thought about her speaking her mother's language after decades of denial. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Neither did I, Elena said. When my mother got sick, I kept trying to pull her back to who she was. It took me 2 years to understand I was fighting the wrong battle. I wasn't trying to save her. I was trying to save my idea of her. The real person needed something different. What did she need? Permission to be afraid, permission to need help, permission to exist without performing competence. Elena's voice softened. Your mother is giving you a gift, Martin. She's showing you what happens when you finally stop. Pretending you don't need anyone. Don't waste it by wishing her back into isolation. Outside, rain continued. Inside, Martin sat with the truth. His mother was breaking apart, and he could either try to glue the pieces into their old configuration or help build something new from the fragments. He chose the fragments. Diane Chu's heels clicked against marble with the precision of a metronome. Martin heard her before he saw her, that distinctive rhythm of expensive shoes moving with purpose through his childhood home. Where is she? Diane didn't bother with greetings. She stood in the foyer, perfectly composed in a charcoal suit, her carry-on still in hand from the red-eye flight. Good morning to you too. Martin descended the stairs slowly. She's having coffee with Elena in the kitchen. The caregiver. Diane's tone made it sound like an accusation. We need to talk, now. They went to their father's study, neutral ground, though the room still smelled faintly of his cigars. Diane closed the door with careful precision. Mrs. Patterson called me, she began. Then Mrs. Chu, no relation, thankfully. They're concerned about Mom, about this situation you've created. Situation? Don't be dense, Martin. Our mother is wandering the neighborhood like a charity case. She's sitting on porches asking for food. She's wearing casual clothes. Diane's voice rose slightly on the last point, as if this were the greatest offense. And you've hired some unlicensed companion with questionable methods to encourage this behavior. Martin felt his jaw tighten. Elena isn't unlicensed. She's a hospice companion with years of experience. She doesn't have memory care certification. I checked. Diane pulled out her phone, scrolling through notes. I also checked her salary. You're paying her less than half what a proper specialist would cost, which raises questions about exploitation, either of Mom's condition or Elena's desperation. That's not. I've researched facilities. Diane produced brochures from her bag with the efficiency of a lawyer presenting evidence. Silvercrest Memory Estate has impeccable credentials, 24-hour medical oversight, structured cognitive therapy, private suites. They can take Mom within the week. Mom doesn't want that. Mom doesn't know what she wants. That's the nature of her condition. Diane's voice softened slightly. Martin, I know this is hard, but we have a responsibility to protect her dignity, to keep her safe. And isolated? The words came out sharper than Martin intended. Diane, when's the last time you actually spent time with her? Not managing her finances or reviewing medical reports? Actually being present? I was here for Dad's funeral. I call every week. She doesn't remember your calls. Diane flinched. It was subtle, a tiny crack in her armor, but Martin saw it. That's not the point, she recovered. The point is, she's becoming a spectacle. The neighbors are talking. Our family has a reputation in this city. Dad built something important, and Mom maintained it. We owe it to them. To preserve the fortress? Martin stood. That's what Elena calls it. The fortress Mom built around herself. The disease is tearing it down, and you want to rebuild the walls before anyone sees what's inside. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. I'm finally being honest. Martin moved to the window overlooking the garden where Elena and Margaret walked among the roses. Come watch them, just for 5 minutes, then tell me Elena's methods are harmful. Diane joined him reluctantly. Below, Margaret pointed at something in the flower bed. Elena knelt beside her, listening. Margaret's hands moved expressively, telling some story. Even from this distance, Martin could see his mother's face, animated, present, alive in a way she hadn't been in years. She looks happy, Diane admitted quietly. She is happy. For the first time since Dad died. Maybe for the first time in decades. Or she's losing her grip on reality and doesn't understand what she's lost. Maybe those are the same thing. Martin turned to face his sister. Maybe the reality she built was killing her slowly, and the disease is finally setting her free. Diane's expression hardened. You have 1 week, Martin. 1 week to convince me this unconventional approach is actually helping Mom and not just making you feel better about your guilt for abandoning her. Otherwise, I'm consulting an elder care attorney about emergency guardianship. She left the brochures on their father's desk like evidence at a crime scene. Martin stood alone in the study, watching his mother laugh at something Elena said, and wondered if love always felt this much like choosing sides in a war. The attorney's name was Charlotte Webb, and her office smelled like leather and judgment. Diane had invited Martin to attend, not a request, a summons delivered via text at 7 in the morning. Thank you both for coming, Charlotte said, settling behind her desk with the confidence of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. Diane has outlined her concerns about your mother's current care situation. I want to hear from both of you before we discuss options. Diane presented her case with lawyerly precision. Elena's lack of credentials, Margaret's public behavior, the financial irregularities of paying below market rates, the neighborhood gossip. She had documentation for everything, printed emails from concerned neighbors, Margaret's medical records, research on memory care facilities. The standard of care matters, Diane concluded. Our mother deserves professional, evidence-based treatment, not experimental methods from someone with good intentions, but questionable qualifications. Charlotte turned to Martin. Your perspective? My mother is happier than she's been in years. The words felt inadequate against Diane's fortress of facts. Elena's approach isn't about maintaining who Mom was. It's about honoring who she's becoming. That's very poetic, Charlotte said, not unkindly. But the court will need more concrete evidence of well-being, medical assessments, psychological evaluations, documentation of cognitive stability or improvement. I can provide that, Martin said, though his confidence wavered. Here's what concerns me from a legal standpoint, Charlotte continued. Your mother's public behavior, wandering, inappropriate requests, giving away money. These could support an incapacity determination. If this proceeds to guardianship proceedings, the judge will prioritize safety and dignity as defined by medical standards, not emotional intuition. Martin felt the walls closing in. This was exactly what he'd feared. Reducing his mother's transformation to clinical metrics that missed the entire point. The court date would be in 3 weeks, Charlotte said, unless you can reach a family agreement before then. Outside, rain had started. Martin and Diane stood under the building's awning, neither quite ready to leave. I'm not trying to be cruel, Diane said finally. I'm trying to protect her. I know. Martin did know. That was the hardest part. Diane's concerns came from genuine love, just expressed through control rather than presence. But Diane, you're trying to protect a version of Mom that doesn't exist anymore. The woman she was, that fortress she built, it's gone. We can either mourn that forever, or we can meet who she's actually becoming. What if who she's becoming isn't better? What if it's just less? Come home with me, Martin said. Spend a day, not investigating or evaluating, just being present, then decide. Diane hesitated. I have a flight back tonight. Change it. Something in his voice must have reached her, because Diane nodded slowly. They drove to the house in silence. Martin's phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Your mother is asking for you. Come to Mr. Kowalski's when you can." He found them 3 houses down. Mr. Kowalski had his accordion out, the first time Martin had seen it since his wife's funeral. Margaret sat on the porch steps, listening to an old Polish waltz with her eyes closed. Elena perched on the railing, smiling. When the song ended, Margaret opened her eyes and saw Martin. "Do you hear that?" she asked. "The music makes the loneliness quieter." "I hear it, Mom." Margaret noticed Diane standing behind Martin. "I know you," she said, squinting. "You look like someone I should remember." "I'm your daughter." Diane's voice caught. "Oh." Margaret considered this. "Are you lonely too?" The question, so direct, so impossibly perceptive, cut through all of Diane's legal arguments and structured thinking. Martin watched his sister's face do something he'd never seen before. It crumbled. "Yes," Diane whispered. "Yes, I'm very lonely." Margaret patted the step beside her. "Sit. The music helps." And Diane sat. She sat on a neighbor's porch step in her expensive suit, rain threatening. Overhead, and let their mother take her hand. Mr. Kowalski started another song, something soft and sad and healing. Elena caught Martin's eye and nodded toward the street. They walked to the end of the block, giving Diane and Margaret space. "She came to fight for control," Elena said quietly. "I know. But she's discovering she's been lonely too, just like your mother, just like Mr. Kowalski, just like half this neighborhood." Elena looked back at the porch where Diane now had her head on Margaret's shoulder. "Your mother isn't sick, Martin. She's contagious. She's teaching everyone what happens when you finally stop pretending you don't need anyone." Martin's phone buzzed, a text from Diane. "Cancel the attorney. We need to talk, really talk." The rain started in earnest. But on Mr. Kowalski's porch, 3 people sat together under the eaves, listening to music that made the loneliness quieter, learning that sometimes the only way to save someone is to stop trying to fix them. Martin didn't sleep. The night stretched endless, Charlotte Webb's words echoing in his mind. The court will prioritize safety and dignity as defined by medical standards, not emotional intuition. At 4 in the morning, he gave up on rest. He dressed in the dark, grabbed his keys, and drove through Seattle's empty streets. He ended up in Beacon Hill without consciously deciding to go there. The neighborhood was waking, lights flickering on in kitchen windows, the smell of coffee and breakfast drifting from corner cafes. Working-class families starting their days while wealthy Martin Chu sat in his luxury sedan, searching for ghosts. He found the building easily. The ramen restaurant wouldn't open for hours, but Martin stood on the sidewalk where his mother had stood weeks ago, trying to see what she'd seen. His grandmother had run a grocery here. Margarita Cruz had worked behind the counter, ashamed of her mother's accent, desperate to become someone else. She'd succeeded spectacularly, married into wealth, built an empire of social connections, erased every trace of the struggling immigrant girl, and in doing so, she'd built a prison. Martin thought about his own life. The perfect resume, the international business deals, the empty mansion he'd avoided for 6 months. He'd inherited his mother's playbook: achieve, control, never need anything from anyone. And he was just as lonely as she'd been. The sun rose over the city, painting the gentrified storefronts in golden light. Martin imagined his mother as a young woman, standing in this exact spot, deciding who she wanted to become. Had there been a moment when she could have chosen differently? When she could have integrated her past instead of erasing it? His father's death had cracked the fortress. The Alzheimer's was demolishing it completely. But underneath was an emptiness. It was the person Margaret might have been if she'd never felt she needed armor. Martin pulled out his phone and called Elena. "I'm sorry," he said when she answered, her voice sleep rough. "I know it's early." "It's okay. Are you all right?" "Don't resign." The words came out urgent. "Elena, please don't resign. I need you to teach me. I need you to help me explain this to Diane, because I finally understand. Mom isn't losing herself. She's finding herself. And I can't let Diane put her somewhere that will try to rebuild the fortress." Silence on the line. Then, "Where are you?" "Beacon Hill, where my grandmother's store used to be." "I'll be there in 20 minutes." They sat in a cafe across the street, drinking coffee while the neighborhood came alive around them. Martin told Elena about his childhood, the emphasis on achievement, the emotional distance, the unspoken rule that needing help meant weakness. "I've been living in my own fortress," he admitted, "just like Mom, and I'm terrified that if I let Diane win, I'll spend the rest of my life in isolation, convincing myself it's strength." Elena listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "Your sister is scared too. She's watching your mother dissolve and it feels like chaos. Control is the only response she knows. So how do I reach her? Show her what I showed you. Document everything. Not just your mother's confusion. Document her joy, her connections, the moments when she's more present than she's been in decades." Elena pulled out her journal, flipped to a page filled with notes. "Medical standards matter to courts, so give them medical evidence. Dr. Patel will help." They spent the morning gathering documentation. Martin photographed Elena's meticulous notes, recorded video of Margaret's morning coffee ritual, captured the peace on her face as she listened to her mother's songs. He called Dr. Patel, who agreed to provide a formal assessment of Margaret's quality of life. By afternoon, Martin had built a case that would have impressed his sister's legal mind, except this case argued for presence over protocols, for emotional truth over institutional control. He called Diane. "We need a family meeting before the attorney. All of us, including Elena." "Martin, please, just give me one conversation. If you still want to pursue guardianship after that, I won't fight you." Diane hesitated. Then, "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, the formal dining room." "No," Martin said. "The kitchen table. This isn't a negotiation. It's a family trying to figure out how to love each other." Another pause. "Fine, the kitchen, but I'm bringing documentation." "So am I." Martin hung up and looked at Elena. "Tomorrow we fight for her." "Tomorrow," Elena agreed, "we show your sister that love isn't about control, it's about presence." The kitchen felt too small for the battle about to take place. Diane sat at one end of the table, her laptop and folders arranged with military precision. Martin sat at the other end, Elena beside him, Dr. Patel and Sandra Johnson acting as witnesses. Margaret was in the garden with Rosa, far enough away to spare her the conflict. "Let's begin," Diane said, her voice crisp. "I've outlined my concerns in this document." She slid papers across the table. Elena's lack of proper credentials, Mom's public behavior that could indicate exploitation, the financial irregularities. "There are no financial irregularities," Martin interrupted. "Elena is paid fairly for her work. Below market rate was her choice, not exploitation." Which raises questions about her motivations. Diane looked at Elena directly. "What do you get out of this? Why work for less than your worth unless there's something else you want?" Elena met her gaze steadily. "I get to give your mother what I couldn't give mine. I get to do my job right this time. Your job is to maintain her dignity. My job is to help her die with authenticity instead of isolation." Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "Your mother built a fortress to protect herself from vulnerability. The disease is tearing down those walls. You can try to rebuild them, or you can meet who's inside. What's inside is confusion and decline." Diane's voice cracked slightly. "She doesn't know who we are half the time. She asks strangers for food. She speaks a language she supposedly forgot 50 years ago. This isn't freedom, it's chaos." "It's both," Dr. Patel said quietly. "May I speak?" Diane nodded. "I've been Margaret's physician for 15 years. I knew the woman she was, controlled, formal, professionally distant. I've watched her transformation over the past 2 months." He pulled out his tablet, displayed charts. "Her vital signs have improved. Her anxiety episodes have decreased by 60%. Her sleep patterns are more regular. By every medical metric I can measure, she's healthier now than she was 6 months ago." "Physically healthier," Diane argued, "but mentally, she's accessing memories and emotional capacities she suppressed for decades. Is that decline, or is it revelation?" Dr. Patel's voice carried the weight of someone who'd thought deeply about this question. "The Alzheimer's is progressing, yes, but Elena's approach isn't accelerating the disease. It's making the journey more bearable." Sandra Johnson leaned forward. "May I share something?" Please, Martin said. My mother died of Alzheimer's 2 years ago. I put her in the best memory care facility I could afford. She died alone, isolated by COVID restrictions, surrounded by professionals who followed every protocol. Sandra's voice shook. I would give anything to go back and do what Elena is doing for Margaret. Your mother is teaching our entire neighborhood how to be human again. She's given Mr. Kowalski a reason to leave his house. She's made my kitchen table feel like family again. That's not exploitation, that's grace. Martin pulled out his phone. Diane, I want to show you something. He played the video he'd taken that morning. Margaret in the garden, speaking about her mother in Tagalog, tears streaming down. Her face, but her expression more peaceful than Martin had seen in years. Then another clip. Margaret laughing with Mr. Kowalski on his porch. Another. Margaret asking the Patel children about their day, genuinely curious, genuinely present. This is Mom, Martin said. Not the fortress she built, the person underneath. And yes, she's confused. Yes, she forgets our names. But Diane, look at her face. When have you ever seen her this present? Diane stared at the screen. Her professional mask wavered. I'm scared, she whispered finally. I'm scared of losing her. I know, Martin said, but we already lost the version we knew. This is who we get now. And if we put her in a facility that tries to maintain her old self, we'll lose this too. Diane looked at Elena. If I agree to this, if I let her stay, will you teach me? Will you show me how to do what Martin is learning? Yes, Elena said simply. Diane's armor cracked completely. She put her face in her hands and wept, raw, ugly crying that she'd probably been holding back since their father died. Sandra moved around the table, put her hand on Diane's shoulder. Dr. Patel quietly excused himself to check on Margaret, and Martin sat with his sister while she grieved. I don't know how to do this, Diane said through her tears. I don't know how to love without controlling. Neither did I, Martin admitted. Elena's teaching me. She'll teach you too. Outside, November rain started falling. Inside, a family began the hard work of choosing presence over performance, vulnerability over control, authentic love over comfortable distance. It wasn't a victory. It was just a beginning. Martin woke to sunlight streaming through his childhood bedroom window and the sound of his mother singing in Tagalog. He recognized the melody now. One of the hymns Elena had found, though he'd never heard his mother's voice carry it before. He found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table with Rosa and Elena, completely lucid. Her eyes held the sharp focus he remembered from before the diagnosis, but something was different. The brittleness was gone. Martin, she said his name clearly. Sit down. We need to talk while I can still remember why it matters. He sat, his heart racing. Dr. Patel had warned these windows of clarity might come, brief, precious moments when the fog lifted completely. I know what happened yesterday, Margaret said. Rosa told me about the meeting, about Diane wanting to put me somewhere safe. She smiled, sad and knowing. Safe. What a word. I've been safe my entire life. Do you know what that's gotten me? Mom, let me finish. I don't know how long I have. She reached across the table, took his hand. I spent 50 years building walls. I changed my name. I forgot my mother's language. I married money and pretended I'd always had it. I hosted governors and tech moguls and told myself I'd transcended where I came from. Her voice wavered but held steady. And I was so lonely. Martin, every day of my carefully constructed life, I was dying of loneliness. Your father knew. He tried to reach me, but I'd forgotten how to be reached. Rosa made a soft sound. Elena sat perfectly still, witnessing. When your father died, something broke. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Or maybe something broke open. The grief was so big I couldn't control it, and then the disease started taking the control I had left. She laughed, harsh and honest. At first I was terrified. But Martin, there's something I need you to understand. She leaned forward, intense despite her confusion, despite the fog that was already beginning to creep back into her eyes. I'm finally hungry for the right things. For 50 years, I filled myself with accomplishments and status and the illusion of invulnerability. I was never actually satisfied. But now, her voice broke. Now, When I knock on Sandra's door asking for food, I'm asking for what I actually need. Connection, presence, someone to sit with me and not pretend everything is fine. Martin felt tears on his face. I understand now, I do. Good, because I need you to do something for me. Margaret pulled an envelope from her robe pocket, placed it on the table. I recorded this yesterday when Elena told me about Diane's concerns. It's my wishes, legal, clear, witnessed. She tapped the envelope. I want to stay here. I want Elena to stay. I want the neighborhood visits to continue. And Martin, her grip tightened on his hand. I want you to learn what I'm learning, that needing people isn't weakness, that asking for help is courage, that the fortress I built to protect myself was actually a prison. The clarity was already fading. Martin watched his mother's eyes lose their sharp focus, watched her drift back into the fog. But before she slipped away completely, she said one more thing. Tell your sister I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I taught her to be strong instead of teaching her to be honest. Margaret's voice softened to a whisper. Tell her there's still time to learn. By afternoon, the lucidity had faded entirely, but the recording remained. Margaret's voice, choosing her own path forward, giving her children permission to let her transform. Diane's flight back to New York left in 6 hours. She stood in Margaret's bedroom doorway, watching their mother sleep, her face softer than Diane remembered it being in decades. She won't remember the conversation, Martin said quietly beside her. But we will. Diane nodded. She'd listened to the recording 3 times, crying harder each time. Their mother's voice, clear, present, devastatingly honest, had shattered something Diane didn't know she'd been holding. I have to go back, Diane said. My daughter, my practice. But Martin, she turned to face him. I need to learn this, what you and Elena are doing. I need monthly visits, real ones, not management, not supervision, just presence. Elena can teach us both. They found Elena in the garden, deadheading roses while Margaret watched from a bench. Diane approached slowly, sat down beside the woman she'd tried to have removed. I'm sorry, Diane said. I was trying to protect Mom from vulnerability, but I was really trying to protect myself from watching her need things I don't know how to give. Elena smiled gently. That's honest. Honesty is a good start. Will you teach me? Not just about Mom's care, about all of it. How to be present instead of controlling. How to love without fixing. Yes, but Diane, Elena's voice carried weight. This isn't a technique. It's a complete rearrangement of priorities. It means choosing connection over control, even when control feels safer. I know. Diane looked at her mother, who'd fallen asleep in the afternoon sun. She spent her whole life choosing safety. Look where it got her. Over the next 2 weeks, Diane stayed. She learned the rituals Elena had established, the morning coffee ceremony, the afternoon neighbor visits, the evening music. She sat through Margaret's confusion without trying to correct it. She held her mother's hand when Margaret asked if she was lonely. Martin watched his sister transform, watched her armor crack the way his had. They walked together one evening while Elena stayed with Margaret, and Diane told him about her marriage, successful on paper, empty beneath the surface, about her daughter, who she loved but barely knew, about her entire life built on their mother's blueprint of achievement over authenticity. I don't want to die lonely, Diane whispered. I don't want to wait for a disease to force me to be honest. Then don't wait, Martin said. When Diane finally left, she'd drafted new legal documents formalizing Elena's role, establishing a care fund, removing all objections to Margaret's home-based treatment. But more than that, she'd scheduled monthly visits and joined an Alzheimer's caregivers group in New York. I'll see you in 4 weeks, she told Martin at the airport. And Mom, even if she doesn't remember. Martin moved back into the family home permanently. He converted his childhood bedroom into a workspace, installed equipment for remote meetings, and told his Singapore partners he wouldn't be returning. Chu properties would continue, but not at the expense of presence. The neighborhood dynamic had shifted completely. Mr. Kowalski joined the evening walks regularly now. Sandra Johnson organized a rotation where different neighbors hosted Margaret weekly. Even Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Chu, no relation, had softened after witnessing Margaret's genuine joy at simple connection. Rosa, who'd worked for the family for 30 years, told Martin one afternoon, "I've known your mother my entire adult life. I'm just getting to know her now." And Elena had become family in ways that transcended employment. She moved into the guest house, became a permanent fixture at the kitchen table, taught Martin and Diane how to love without controlling. The fortress Margaret had built was completely demolished now. In its place was something messier, more vulnerable, infinitely more real. A family learning to need each other. A neighborhood learning that vulnerability transforms communities. A son learning that the greatest inheritance isn't wealth or status, it's the courage to be authentically, desperately, beautifully human. Martin stood in the garden one evening, watching his mother ask Mr. Kowalski about his late wife. She wouldn't remember this conversation tomorrow, but it was deeply real now. And that was enough. 6 months had passed since Martin found his mother on a neighbor's doorstep with empty Tupperware. Now, in late April, the garden party bore no resemblance to Margaret Chu's former galas. The backyard filled with mismatched lawn chairs and potluck dishes. Children ran between tables while Mr. Kowalski tuned his accordion, fingers remembering melodies his grief had silenced for 2 years. Sandra Johnson set out her famous potato salad. Dr. Patel's wife arranged samosas beside Rosa's lumpia. Margaret moved through the gathering in simple cotton, her designer suits abandoned in closets she no longer remembered owning. She touched people's hands as she passed, asked her questions. "Are you lonely? What made you smile today?" Martin watched from the porch steps, Elena beside him. His mother had just asked Mrs. Patterson, who'd called attorneys 6 months ago, if she missed anyone. Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears as she described her estranged son in Portland. "She's contagious," Elena said softly. "Your mother is teaching everyone what happens when you stop pretending you don't need people." Diane appeared at Martin's elbow, her teenage daughter trailing behind. His sister had flown in last night, would stay through the weekend. Monthly visits had become her ritual, each one stripping away more armor. "Mom asked me this morning if I was lonely," Diane said. She didn't remember my name, but she knew exactly what question I needed to hear. Her daughter, Martin's niece Emma, watched her grandmother with curiosity rather than pity. "Grandma's different than I remember." "She is," Martin agreed. "She's more herself." Margaret approached carrying a plate of cookies, offered them to Emma. "Are you new to the neighborhood?" "I'm your granddaughter," Emma said gently. "Oh," Margaret considered this, unbothered by the gap in her memory. "Do you like music? That man is going to play soon." She gestured toward Mr. Kowalski. "Music makes the loneliness quieter." "I'd like to hear it," Emma said. Margaret smiled and moved on, distributing cookies, collecting moments of connection she wouldn't remember tomorrow, but that were deeply real now. Mr. Kowalski began playing, a Polish waltz that drifted across the lawn like benediction. Couples swayed together, children spun in dizzy circles. Sandra Johnson pulled the widowed Mr. Williams into an impromptu dance that made him laugh for the first time since his wife's death. Martin felt Elena take his hand. They'd become something more than professional relationship over these months, though neither had named it yet. It didn't need naming. Like his mother's transformation, some things revealed themselves through presence rather than definition. "Your inheritance," Elena said quietly. "This is what she's giving you." Martin understood. Not the real estate empire or investment portfolios, though those existed too. The real inheritance was this: permission to need people, courage to ask for help, understanding that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but the foundation of authentic connection. His mother approached, holding her empty plate like an offering bowl. She looked at Martin with vague recognition, someone familiar, someone safe. "Are you lonely?" she asked him. 6 months ago, he would have deflected, assured her everything was fine, maintained the fortress she'd taught him to build. Now, he gave her truth. "Not anymore," Martin said. "You taught me how to let people in." Margaret smiled, radiant despite her confusion. "That's good. Being alone is hard." She wandered toward the music, drawn by accordion melodies and gathered community. Martin watched her go, this woman who'd spent 50 years performing invulnerability finally free to be desperately, courageously human. The garden filled with voices and connection, the inheritance of hunger finally satisfied. not through wealth or status or careful control, but through the simple, revolutionary act of needing each other.